Guess we'll call this meeting to order. First on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have presentations from Karen Ann, our community navigator. Yes, please.
Before she gets started, I just want to share a story. I think it was last Monday. I saw the police chief pop in her office, and a few minutes later I saw Karen Ann with some determination in her walk leave the office. And then a while later, she came back, chief walked in, closed door, and they were in there for quite a while. And the chief left the office, and he peeked around the corner. I said, "Everything good?" And he goes, "Yeah, we're just saving lives and stuff like that." Gave me a wink, and off he went. And that's what this program's been doing, changing lives and saving lives. And it was just great to see the chief, who I'm sure, when I first said, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get a community navigator, and they're going to be able to help with some of the problems, and they're going to help some of the things that you face every day and maybe help solve some of them." I'm sure he was a little skeptical, but he literally had a pep in his step. And just how he said, just saving lives. And it just truly hit me. That's what we're doing. I've said it, but that's what we're doing. Well, actually, it's what she's doing. But it just made me so happy that we're seeing the fruits of our labors and that we have Karen Ann, and she really is. She's a blessing to this community. So I just needed to share that little story.
Well, thank you. I do need to take this out. I think one of the things that I wanted to share with you is, and I thank you for seeing the work, but I need you all to know it's not just me. The why is really about convening and collaborations. And one of the things that I believe in is really being part of the community as well, which ends up benefiting this position. So I'm on the board of the chamber. I'm also on the board of NAMI Maine, which advocates for mental health. And I network with a lot of people that really care about our community as a whole. So it ends up benefiting Waldoboro in the sense of, if it's a recovery thing, then I'm on the phone with Holly Stover or Tim Cheney. Or if it's housing, I'm reaching out. I'm also on the coalition of the homeless prevention. So I would love to own all of that glory. But really, I was joking before the meeting that the work is really about the folks that we serve, because I'm a true believer in accountability. And I'm just giving them a list of the phone numbers that they need to contact, and I hear their story, and then whatever's pertinent is giving them the list. The benefit is when you're involved and you're networking in a community like ours, then you have that as a toolbox. So I am calling the Holly Stovers and the Tim Cheneys or Katie Ramirez at Tedford Housing. So it's never just a one-man show, and I really need to stress that. But I get the privilege of being that catalyst of connecting, and that's what we do at the Y, is making sure that we convene and connect for a healthier community. Really what I wanted to share is, housing is continuing to be an issue, and as most folks know, the eviction ban will be lifting very soon. It's supposed to lift in a couple of days, and that will mean probably October we're going to be looking at a tsunami, and that's really not a great time. I chatted with Holly Stover right before this meeting, just trying to prepare, and I'm trying to educate myself on what that means. And what it means for many communities is those folks that are not able to afford their rent are then going to be receiving their eviction notices, especially if they've gotten a notice prior to COVID. They get expedited because they've already been on kind of a watch list. So I encourage everyone to continue to be thinking outside the box as far as affordable housing, and that can mean many things now, because it's not just low income people now that are affected by housing. Now it's even middle income families that are starting to inquire with me. So I'm seeing probably an average of, I'm only here 2 days a week, so I'm seeing an average of 2 to 5 families a week, and I would say about 85% has a homeless piece in it. Not necessarily that they are homeless, but they are in a situation that they possibly could be homeless, or it's the repairs to their existing homes here in Waldoboro especially that I'm finding is that their homes are being devalued by the shape and their value. I don't know if anybody has any questions of me.
So I have a question. So what you're seeing now, I'm glad you pointed it out, because the homelessness portion of it is not just to people who are at risk or had an issue before. Now it's people who have, I know we got a call last week from somebody who had been renting and the house sold because the homeowner wanted to sell it, and now they can't find a place to rent.
Yes, exactly.
They can't even afford a place to either buy or rent.
Yeah.
So we're expecting to see even more and more of that.
Yeah. And, when I do network, I was also discussing with Holly, because she's in legislature and she can kind of get the lay of the land of what to expect. And, there's a lot of people living outside. There's a lot of people living in campgrounds, and, the weather's, going to get cold here in Maine. And so that added to the eviction ban, I think, is going to probably be consuming a lot of time.
And when you do see people come in, is it normally just for one problem?
No,
one issue?
Absolutely not. No. There's probably 4 or 5 different needs. Right now, it's even school supplies. I mean, luckily we have, I also do outreach as part of my other face, my other hat, and we have that provided by some businesses for all of Lincoln County schools. So we have backpacks filled with supplies that are for any of our schools, so I can make sure that they get school supplies and backpacks. But yeah, parents are finding it hard to get their kids ready for school. Yeah. Food is not as much of an issue, which surprisingly, the food pantries are doing pretty well with funding and a lot of their residual COVID funding, but it still exists. There's still pride. There's still people that won't ask for help, that are hungry.
Does transportation play into this at all? And do we have any idea in our community what the numbers might be? Have you been getting any indication from folks that they're kind of nervous about the longevity of where they are, what their home is, because the ban is going to be off and because homes are being sold?
Yeah, I haven't, that's a good question, Bob, and I haven't really looked into, I haven't heard a lot of that. Fish transportation, which is run primarily by volunteers, or all by volunteers. They slowed down and shut down through COVID because a lot of their volunteers were of the at-risk age. They are running again, so that is good. There are some stipulations that don't qualify for people to utilize fish. But I would say I've only gotten 2 calls specifically for transportation, and I've done a handoff and haven't heard back. So I haven't quite heard that.
Okay.
As I wouldn't put it at the top of my list.
Okay.
Housing is number 1.
Yep.
For sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else got questions? Getting more? Well, go ahead, Bob.
One more. What do you, if you can suggest, what do you think we ought to be doing as a community to anticipate this more proactively, perhaps, than we are? Are there funding sources we should be looking at? Are
Yeah,
there
and I
other...
wish I was versed on what those are. Again, I could definitely, I'm the convener, so I could connect you with the right people that could answer those questions. But I do think that, I've been going online, even on my downtime, like, what are other communities doing, even other states?
Yeah.
And there's some that are actually buying up, compounds and making affordable housing. And, there's different stipulations, like some has to be, they're all related, because they want the intergenerational living to be, there's studies that say that that's a healthy environment when kids can live with their older, around their older relatives. But I don't know what the solution is. And I think that working with this team has been amazing, because working with code enforcer and Daryl and Max, all of us together, working together, we usually can figure out where are we missing and where are the loopholes that we can really serve these families the best way we can.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great team here for sure. And I don't think there's a deficit per se, like as far as protocols or regulations, but I think, it might come to a point where you just you have to look at that a little bit, the zoning and stuff like that, but I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know what the miracle bullet is, but I'll be sure to let you know when I hear in my research. Again, I'm continually, it's a problem and it's going to be a stressor for me in my position, so I'm going to always be looking for solutions. So I'll continue to bring those solutions to the table as I know them.
Thank you.
For sure.
So when you talk to Max, are you looking at grants and stuff like that?
Max is really like helping me to understand what those are and what's available. So then, the Lincoln County Planning are inviting us to some brainstorming sessions and information sessions on, how that funding can best be used. So there's also job retention that is an issue. We want our people that are employed to stay employed. That definitely is becoming a louder voice when you have folks, these businesses are really struggling with staffing. And then you've got people that have been working all along that, the pay rates are getting really skewed. So, it's definitely being able to bounce off Max, even what does this bill mean, so.
I'm just curious if there's any grants out there that qualify for any of these programs that you deal with.
Yeah, we're definitely watching.
Grants are Max's.
Certainly volunteering for them every time.
You're the man. Yeah. Don't be good at what you are and not expect to be asked to do it.
Yeah. No, I think we're always watching. We're definitely always watching, and in our communication of what is, like I'm presenting here, what is the biggest need.
Yep.
I think that this team here definitely is thinking broad and from a whole standpoint.
I was talking to a community member who I thought was well informed, and she didn't realize that we had this position, and I was explaining it to her and some of the good things that have been done. How can we get the word out to others in the community?
Yeah, we can definitely be publishing some more flyers, or by all means, word of mouth is always good. I was telling Julie, I think one day we need to invite some of these folks that have received these services and are willing to be upfront about receiving these services, because really, I mean, they can tell the story. But we try from the why standpoint to, it's delicate, Jan, because it's confidential, right? And then, but yet there is, and it's not about me patting myself, it's about them doing amazing work for themselves. And again, I believe in accountability. It's, I'll help you find a job, you gotta show up, or I'll give you these numbers, I'm not gonna call for you, but I'll sit here with you. That's very empowering for individuals, and if they could share with all of you what I get to see, I almost feel greedy, like, selfish, because I get to see the success side of it too. But it doesn't go without, sad stories too, failure stories. But we just keep trying, and they know the door is open, right? They know they can come back, especially around recovery.
And I think one of the great things is Karen Ann's a known, and she's from the area, so people, they know. And I've gotten from residents you've helped wonderful feedback, because they'll say, hey, I don't know if you knew, but I had to go see, and this is where we're at, and it's quite an amazing story when you hear them.
Yeah, because it's really up to them to tell their story. It's important to build that and keep that trust, right? So, but you're right. I mean, you can talk about it.
I was talking with a woman. Yeah. So it's just the premise of the whole program. I was talking with someone, and she was describing what we could do in this community, the things that she thought we could do. And she was describing your job, and I said, we have a person. Yeah. And this is what they do. They help other people to help themselves. And she had no idea. And what I thought well-informed community person here.
Yeah.
So who else doesn't know? That was my question. Yeah. If she doesn't know, who else really doesn't?
I think it's a good thing to be mindful of, and making sure that we're talking to our neighbors.
And I do think once you help one person, that breeds more.
That helps. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Reach out to your neighbors. Make sure, check on your neighbors, and let them know that this is here. Yeah.
Does anybody in the audience have?
I have two questions. You had talked about the school supplies, the need for school supplies, and said that you have stuff available. Is that through, because I know you have a dual role with the Y and then also with Waldoboro. When you were speaking to that, was that specific to Waldoboro, or was that Lincoln County in general through the Y?
That's the AOS 93 and homeschool and the private schools that are in our district. Those were funds that were gathered by Rotary. That put those supplies and backpacks together.
Okay.
Yep. Anybody can call here if they're a Waldoboro resident, and first come, first serve once they're gone. But I can always get more.
But is it RSU 40 as well, or no?
Yeah, of course. Okay. Yes.
Okay. And then the other question I wanted to ask you is with the homeless situation. I know that you've been working with that for a while with people over time, not just, now, and not just with the potential evictions coming up. And I was curious what kinds of places are available to people that you're able to put them in. Are there, I don't know if it's apartments, if it's buses, if it's homes, how you find it, what kind of things you find.
It's been a whole gamut of things, but honestly, that's my biggest roadblock. Oftentimes it's not, oftentimes they still have to live with parents that might be dysfunctional, and they're living, a couple with 4 kids that are living with parents that it's just not a healthy home, and they have to continue to do so. But to answer to your question, BC, is what I do is I work in partnership with Tedford Housing.
Right.
And so, but our desire, right, is we're not wanting to ship people out of our community. We want them to be here. And that's where we all need to get creative. We need to find a solution around that. because there's shelters all over Maine that we can access. But what do we do for the residents that really want to stay in their home, that they've generations lived here?
Right, yeah, which is definitely a big issue. Are there shelters within Lincoln County?
There is not. There's a hope for a new recovery center that's in grassroots right now, and that's for people in recovery.
Yeah.
But it really just needs to be, a lot of creativeness. Because you're right, people are selling homes. They're taking advantage of this housing market. So it's not just the low-income folks that are facing this now.
Which gives even more of a glut on the market of more people needing some form of affordable housing that normally wouldn't. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. All right, we have no public hearings. Is there any adjustments to the agenda?
My only suggestion would be maybe moving up the EMS discussion further on the agenda, if you wanted to.
Sure. Well, we gets the consent, well, yeah, okay.
It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. We can probably fly through a lot of this other stuff.
Okay, we can fly through it.
Yes.
Okay.
Bob, do you have?
I was just going to suggest that if everybody's on board, we add a new 10.4 under new business to appoint the Brown Tail Moth Committee.
Okay, we can do that.
I'd make that motion.
Is there a second?
Are you saying to make appointments?
To actually appoint the committee, we have 3 known people.
Okay, and have they been interviewed?
They've been on other committees.
Yeah, oh,
We don't need to interview them.
yeah, okay. 'Cause we
Yeah,
do
they're ready
have
to go.
Some appointments on
Yep.
here.
Yeah, that's the Shellfish
Yeah.
Committee, yeah.
All those in favor? All right, citizens' comments. Are you a citizen?
Well, no.
Okay, well, you are, but
Yes, I am.
if this was for the fire department, or is this for you?
Yes.
He's a citizen though.
Thank
He is.
Thank you.
Okay, you're doing it as a citizen. Okay.
Oh, cool.
I've been speaking to you for several years about the upcoming Maine State Federation of Firefighters Convention. It was supposed to be here last year, and due to COVID, we weren't able to do it. So we're trying again this year, and every night when I watch the news, I get more and more concerned. So you have before you the schedule of events that will be taking place September 9th through the 12th. There's a couple of things I'd like to especially point out to you. The first would be on Friday evening at 6 o'clock, the memorial service, which would be here at the fire station. Many of you all know this is the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and so we'll be holding a special memorial service here at our station. Saturday morning at 10 o'clock will be the parade. It will follow the route down Friendship Street and Jefferson Street. It'll start at Sylvania and will end at Miller School. So we'll come down through there. That evening, the second page that I gave you is information on our banquet. That will be at the Samoset. And if you folks would like to attend, you have the information that's there, and feel free to let us know. And then Sunday will be the muster, which is pretty much the Firefighters Olympics. And that'll take place at our rec field over there, and that will conclude the event. So over the years, I've thanked you for your support. We certainly do appreciate it. And we look forward to welcoming firefighters from all over the state of Maine here to our little town. It's not very often that a little town takes on an event like this. And we're very excited to have them come and see how proud we are of our town. So, any questions?
Cool, awesome.
Big thank you for putting this together.
Thank you.
Lisa?
I was just wondering, is the information or the schedule available on a website or Facebook page or anything
Yes,
like that?
everything is on the town's website. You can go right on there, click it, and I'll be happy to get with you in the next week or two, BC, to go over things and so.
That sounds good, thank you.
Well, this could be a retirement job for you, Paul, putting together big festivity organizations like
No,
that.
I'm good, thanks, Jan.
Oh. You've done a
See,
really
that's
good
what-
job of that.
I'm gonna go work with Richard Lash in the flower garden.
Shoot. Any other citizens' comments? Okay, moving along. Select board comments, Bob?
Just a couple. First, well done to the Conservation Commission, to Will and his sister Leslie for all the work they did with the managing access to Quarry Hill and the blueberries. I imagine people are still picking a little bit, but it was nice of you to put that together the way you did. The Waldo Theater is commencing June 13th at 10 o'clock in the morning, is going to have dance classes for over 60s. I guess I qualify for that.
When's that again, Paul?
September 13th is the start date, and every Monday thereafter at 10 o'clock.
Oh, to work.
It's stretching
Yeah.
and kind of exercise, I suppose, types of dance aerobics and that kind of thing. Yeah, and we've covered the Browntail Moth Committee thing, so that's my comment.
Yeah.
Just a quick one, just to echo something, I think it was Bob who mentioned it last time we were here, and that was the Dolliff family, what do you call it? The Historical Society had that for them. Well, I was unable to go, however, last night at 11 o'clock, it popped up on my Facebook page at 11 o'clock at night. And it was LCTV had recorded it, and what a good job they did. Sometimes I try to watch those Historical Society things because I like them. And often you hear the traffic and things like that. This one was really excellent. You could hear everything. So I finished it, watching it about midnight last night. It was so interesting. And if you have any interest in Waldoboro history, the stories that they told and the names of places and names of people and reliving their childhood and the things that they did and some of the antics that they did. It was just amazing. It was so well done, and it was really nice that the Historical Society honored a family from Waldoboro. And what a good job. So if you haven't watched it, if you didn't get a chance to get there, it's LCTV has a link, and it's well worth listening and watching. That's it.
I have no comment.
I just want to say something about the Colonel. Colonel's not here tonight, but he's in the hospital and he's having a little procedure done, and hopefully he'll be back at the next meeting. So that's all I have to say. All right, consent calendar. Oh, sorry. Well,
You always forget me, that's okay. We did have an issue this last week with the rerouting of traffic, and Will, just correct me if at any point I'm wrong. Because of the detour, it was noticed that Wagner Bridge Road had to be reposted to 45 miles an hour. And that caused a lot of dismay for the residents on Wagner Bridge Road. And we received several inquiries and a request for it to be looked at by John Daigle. John Daigle does not, nor do I, nor do you, set the speed limits. We have to go through the state. And for that to be looked at, it would necessitate you asking for the state to come down and look at the speeds on that road and determine what it should be set at. Because if it starts out at 25 at some point, well, Depot does 25, then it goes to 35, and then now there's sections of it that are at 45. And it is confusing as you're driving. So if you wouldn't mind authorizing me to request that to be looked at by the state, and John supported that idea that it be looked at, that would be great, because we really can't change it until we have that.
I'd make that motion.
Make that motion?
Yep.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any more discussion on it? Hearing none, all those in favor?
And thank you. And the only other thing I would say is I keep getting asked about our intersection, Jefferson and Main Street and Friendship. That has been given over to the safety division. I have asked for an update on the time frame of when that will be done. There's also been some chatter on Facebook about parking spaces in front of the community center. I talked at community pharmacy. One of the issues is that with any of the downtown, that intersection being improved, we're going to have to push the parking. But one of the other issues is the center line has to be changed in order to accommodate the parking spaces. So there's a lot of repainting that's going to have to go on. So we are aware of it. I've been sending Dave emails and talking to him on the phone. He's going to get a timeline from the safety division as to when they're going to be getting their turning counts and things like that. So that's not something that just got sent to the state and nothing's happening, but I just don't have a time frame back yet. So we are working on it. And that's all I have.
Okay. Somebody like to make a motion on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay. All right, new business, EMS staffing discussion. Would that fall under the Richard Lash?
And the Derek Booker.
I was gonna put Derek, I wasn't gonna put Derek
Derek's
on
my
the spot.
wingman. Yeah. Just briefly want to talk about staffing issues with EMS. Some of it has to do with the COVID, but not all of it, because it's been working this way for a long time. A lot of towns now are going to full-time employees for their services. I'm talking the amount of calls that we do, the size service, they're looking at going to full-time employees. Derek and I have been recruiting pretty much on a daily basis. We've been reaching out to people. We do have 2 interviews, one for driver, one for basic, coming up next week. But it seems as we pick 1 or 2 up, then we lose 1 or 2. And everybody's getting tired, and the COVID did add to that. Everybody is just getting worn out. We talk about it regularly with other Lincoln County services, wondering what we can do as a county to help with staffing needs. And there's no good answer right now unless we could have a big classroom and put 50 people in it and get them all trained. Right now we have on our roster we have 13 paramedics, 10 advanced EMTs, and 6 basic EMTs, and 1 driver. And of those, 7 of them are not very active. We may get a shift out of them once in a while, but they're not very active. So that leaves about 22 on our roster that's somewhat active. Of those 22, 11 of them work full-time for other fire or EMS or medical departments. And all the rest of them have full-time jobs. What I wanted to say about the full-time positions is we kind of get the leftovers, because these EMS providers, they're dedicated to their prime job. That's where they get the benefits. So we had somebody come in late tonight, and I'm surprised Derek just didn't have to go on that call. And so we kind of get the leftovers. They come in late, and it's not any fault of their own. They're just working that primary job. So that kind of puts us at a little bit of disadvantage as well. We have been turning down transfers more than this year than we ever have, because we haven't had the staffing. And of course, transfers usually turn into revenue for us. We've also, we're up about 300 calls over last year right now for where we was last year at this time. I'd like to put a little caveat in that. We had February and March of last year where we had a call volume was way down because people wasn't calling us because of COVID. But come about April or May, that turned right around again, and all of a sudden it just shot right up. So we're pretty much on average of last year where we had been the last few years. So we're about 300 calls up. We're also finding a higher acuity of the 911 calls that we're getting. And so that means we actually utilizing paramedics, their skills a lot more because of the higher acuity of the calls. And so that is also become an issue for us here in, I say Waldoboro, but it's everywhere. The state of Maine is having staffing issues everywhere. It's a national issue, and it's really starting to hit us here now. Derek and I will be right up front with you, we're getting tired. I normally work Monday through Thursday, and I've worked the last 5 or 6 weekends. So it's just because people have called out, or we just haven't had the staff. So I don't know what the good answer is at this point. Say we're reaching out, trying to get people, and I know the budget this year, I think is 938,000 because we added the extra for the night coverage. That has helped some, but not like we hoped it would. But it has, moving that from 7 to 13 an hour for the night shift has brought in some extra help. Some nights we actually have 4 people on a night shift. So, but it hasn't been quite the answer we hoped it would be. And then to add to all of this, the governor's mandate that all EMS providers have to have the COVID vaccine. And this has been a big political issue, as well as we have some people very adamant that they just don't trust it, or they don't want the government telling them what to do. And I have to say with that, we have been right in the thick of COVID in EMS. And our people have been excellent wearing their protective equipment and we're going by the rules, and we have not had one person contact COVID that we know of that got COVID. So they've done a really good job, but everybody's tired, pretty much getting all dressed up every time they go on a call, and gowns and gloves and masks, and so everybody's just tired as well. At the same time, the hospitals are having the same issues that we are, and that there's no rooms in the state. So, but when they find one, everybody's trying to juggle to get people moved. So, which is new for us this year. We have Waldo County calling us, wanting us to come up there to move patients for them. Penn Bay is calling us directly now instead of going through the channels they're supposed to with Northeast Mobile Health Services. We're getting calls from Miles. We actually had a meeting 2 weeks ago with the doctors at Miles, and because they was getting aggravated with us because we couldn't move patients out for them when they needed them to go. And we tried our best. Derek and I have come in nights so critical patients could get moved so the crew could take them. We cover town. It doesn't necessarily have to be our resident, but if somebody's having a STEMI and they got to go to Portland to the cath lab, we try to make sure that we can get them there one way or the other.
So just to echo on what he's saying there, sometimes that entails us leaving our town without a paramedic, which is leaving your town without a paramedic. So what that means is if we take a heart attack in tonight, and it's myself, and I'm the only one on duty, and I have to take that to Portland, the town's without a paramedic. We're very lucky to be surrounded by mutual aid agencies that staff paramedics, CLC, Thomaston, Rockland, but the point is the truck coming may, one, be delayed because of short staffing, and two, may not have a paramedic on it, even if it's a paramedic level call.
We make phone calls at night with CLC and Dan Muscata. If we're going to send somebody out, do you have somebody? Or they may call over here, we're gonna send, we got 2 emergency transfers that's gotta go to Maine Med. Will you help cover us if we need medics or if we need service? So we're covering each other. So it's, you know, this year, well, from August to August, we went to Friendship 105 times, which is one of our units. We went to Jefferson 190 times. We've been to Appleton 5 times, Bristol 4 times, Union 13 times, Bremen twice, Warren 205 times, Washington 15 times, Noblesboro 3, Damascotta 10, Newcastle 3, Alno 1. So you say we're going as far as Bristol and South Bristol just to help out because they're short-staffed like we are. And
that agency is certainly returning the favor.
Yep. Oh yeah, it goes both ways. But so the bottom line is, I don't know what the good answer is. I said the governor's mandate. They had a meeting yesterday on Zoom. There was 646 participants. That's more, way over what I've ever seen on a Maine EMS meeting. And there was hours of comments with almost all of the comments saying that they understood the mandate, but so many people say they're going to walk away from EMS for this mandate. And many fire chiefs spoke that also have EMS services. But the bottom line was a lot of repercussions of this, but the Maine EMS board voted 9-7 to stay with, even though they have no say over whether they have the mandate or not, their recommendation would be for Maine EMS. After they heard all this testimony, like 99% of the testimony was against the mandate. And a lot of people, like me, said they had the vaccine and, you know, they understand. But there's some people that just, for whatever reason, do not feel comfortable. We have lost 1 employee already because of the mandate, and we have a potential of losing 2. I had everybody but 3 that had the vaccine that worked for us, and the other 2, I'm not sure what they're going to do yet. I've talked with them, and well, it's up to them what they're going to do. But as of October 1st,
They moved it back. The one change they made in the meeting yesterday was that they bumped it back a couple of weeks. But in theory, you know, like we talked about earlier, most of the shots are still a 2-series shot. So that's going to delay it, you know, so we could potentially shortly after October 1st, lose some people that are covering some shifts.
and there was tons of questions yesterday, you know, if we can't prove to you, if an EMS provider can't prove to the state, are you gonna take their license away from them? You know, are you gonna suspend their license? There was just all kinds of questions. Nobody has any answers, and I'm actually gonna Julie's had some conversations today, and I'm gonna let her expound on this a little more. I think I'm pretty much done with what I wanted to say. Basically though, I just wanna give you a heads up that it's getting to be a crucial issue. We're doing all we can right now. People are getting tired. And I don't know if there's a good answer. People are looking at EMS right now. It's a job, it's a full-time job. It's not a volunteer thing anymore. This is their bread and butter. And so we just need to be thinking about this stuff as budget season comes. And if anybody comes up with some good ideas, I know our budget is high now compared to what it was even 2 or 3 years ago. And it's mostly because of payroll and trying to keep good people, which we have good people. They have very good providers here, every one of them.
I think it's important to mention that our recommendation, or at least what we see from our desk, is that full-time people may be the necessity moving forward. Now, the hard part is budget increases, and obviously, you know, our budget is already high, but other agencies, like Rich talked about earlier, that are covering the same number of calls or close to, are staffing with several more full-time employees than we have. There's 3 of us that work here full-time. And something else when it comes to full-time employees is you have a little more control, so to speak, on what they work, right? So if you hire somebody in a position that's, hey, you're gonna work 40 hours a week, but you're gonna work at nights and weekends, you know, and if they don't want that job, they can simply say, no, I don't accept that offer. But we run short on those particulars, and it would be nice if we had people that we could say, hey, this is gonna be your schedule, you know, and that would help us fill in some of those voids, because burnout in EMS is a very real thing. And a lot of us, not just myself and Richard, but a lot of us are starting to feel that burn, you know, and it's hard. It's hard to maintain. Really, quite frankly, it's unsustainable to let us work 110 plus hours a week. Dangerous to the town, and it's at some point the ambulance isn't going to show up. So
Yeah, we've had delayed times on getting the calls now. I was on the radio. I come up from Friendship for a third call the other night. I was by myself. The police were on scene, and I told dispatch, you got to let them know it's going to be, we're not going to get there right off. It's going to be a few minutes, so they're going to have to wait. And sometimes we have to prioritize calls. If we got a medic going to it, maybe dispatch gives us pretty good information now. And if we got a call that seems a lesser acuity, sometimes we have to move stuff around, and so that the higher trained people go on the higher acuity calls. It's much different than it was when I first started, I can tell you that.
and I think it's important to think about what we're doing in our mutual aid areas. We're covering, we provide a paramedic coverage to Warren on the regular. I mean, 205 times we went over there, and most of them primarily are to provide them with a paramedic for their higher acuity calls. So when you talk about budgets and the staffing and the necessity to hire full-time people, I think it's important to consider talking to those places and saying, hey, we've charged you X number of dollars for this long. We need to increase that to offset the cost of hiring more people, or you know, whatever the case may be.
And I also want to be aware, I did send an invitation to both Friendship and to Jefferson to explain to them that we were having this tonight, because I think that's our service area.
Yes.
That's not mutual aid, that's our service area. And I think they have to be involved in this conversation. And there is value to that service that we need to address on how we charge for.
And we certainly want to provide that service.
And we do. But I also have to say, we're in a very precarious time in EMS. And some of that is also pay related. When you can go drive for UPS and you're not going to get thrown up on, and you're not going to deal with some of the situations they deal with.
At 2 in the morning.
At 2 in the morning. And you can make more literally delivering packages versus patients. That's an issue. And that's not just a Waldoboro issue. And that's an issue all over. You know, we have to have that discussion, and it centers around pay. You know, and that's one of the hard things is, what's that balance? And then you add on top the mandate for the vaccinations. And that just further complicates and exacerbates a problem of staffing. So we can't share, I can share with you, I know who those potential people we might lose are. And I can tell you that's going to affect how we run. So I'm thinking, if I were in charge, before I made something like that happen, I would have a plan. So I've spent some time trying to find out what's the plan. Because if we can't, and I'm glad Richard pointed this out, we can pick up a patient, we can take them to Miles. But how do they, if they need a higher level of service than Miles or Penn Bay can provide, how are they then going to be getting to Portland or Augusta?
Just to echo on that, Julie, Miles is what they call a critical access hospital, which basically means that they only provide a minimal amount of service. They're good, they're a good hospital, good doctors, good staff, but a lot of patients require higher level care that requires an ambulance to transport them out of there to, whether it be Portland, Bangor, Eastern Maine, you know, whatever it is. But they can't stay at Miles for long, so.
So if we're experiencing this, and I am assuming and I've had conversations with Nick from CLC. They're going to experience some. I'm sure Dennis may experience some too. I don't want to speak for you, but this is a regional issue. And off we go. And we can't take our patients or our residents, and I'm saying our residents as in county residents, to where they need to go. We're failing. We're failing our residents. So my assumption is that there's a plan. So I spent some time trying to figure out the plan. So I was referred today to a gentleman that I've never spoken to before, but he did email me. He answered me in an email because I was told that he would be the person to talk to.
Who referred you, Julie?
The governor's office. Tom Abello referred me to, hold on here, Sam Hurley. Sam, does that make sense?
Yes, he's the
Sam
Maine,
Hurley.
he's the Maine EMS director.
And he said, he thanked me for reaching out to him. He said that they are working diligently to best understand the impacts of the revised Maine EMS immunization rule, as well as the newly promulgated EMS rule. At this time, Maine EMS does not have the capacity to develop plans for each of the unique communities throughout the state of Maine. As soon as we have any additional information, such as responses to the questions that were posed yesterday, we will post those on a website. So, I worry. If I have staffing issues as it is, and then I lose more staff, my concern is, are we going to be able to answer the calls? Are we going to be able to transport people? And I was thinking there would be a plan of some type of help to us as to somebody's going to come and help us respond. And that's not going to happen. So we have to come up with a plan. We have to figure out how can we staff. Now, whether that's a temporary thing that we have to come up with, but this is my frustration that that's put down, there's decisions made at a higher level, and then we're compensating for them. And I don't want to be late to the game. I don't want to have to take the phone call of why didn't somebody show up to my door? And I think we're all aware, we had a wonderful story recently of how what an amazing job that our EMS staff did saving one of our residents. I want that to continue. I don't want to have the other phone calls or a person standing here saying, we couldn't do this because. So, you know, it's not just a Waldoboro problem, it's a regional problem. And maybe the answer is starting to talk regionally about it and having that true conversation of how can we do this better? Because we do. We take from each other. Dennis took.
I got one of your people.
You got one of mine.
And I took one of CLC's people.
You did, yeah, and then we take them back. And I mean, it's this revolving door. And we need to have an honest conversation about that. We actually have to convene and have a conversation about that and how do we do it better? And how do we attract more people? And I'm going to be really honest. You know, we don't, especially with the per diems, you know, they don't get the benefits here. You know, the per diem rate is pretty much the same all over, but how do you attract people to come? And that's more money. And when you can literally make more money, and there was an advertisement for a dishwasher for $18 an hour. That's hard, and you hear these stories all over. That's hard to compete with. And I've had people say to me, people aren't going to walk away from their jobs. These are the people who have been on the front lines of COVID from the very beginning. These are the people that were told, even if you test positive, but you're asymptomatic, as long as you are wearing your PPE, you can answer a call. We expected them to do that for us then. That's what we expected of these mere mortals who do supernatural things. We expected that of them. We need to pay them like they're superheroes. And that's a tough nut when you're in a public service to say, we're going to do this for this group, raise their rates. But we've got to have those serious conversations because, and it's EMS, and I'm going to kind of go off. It's not only EMS, it's also, we're having trouble finding police officers. We're having trouble just finding people in public works, people at the transfer station. You know, we need to figure out the way forward, and we're not going to get help from any other place other than our own region. It's not coming from above. We've got to come up with these solutions ourselves. And Richard, you're right. It's nationwide, but it affects us.
How many calls are we losing right now for transfers?
I can't tell you a percentage. I'm just going, we've just been so busy. This whole summer's just kind of run into a blur. But I know from when I'm on, we have six supervisors, and we try to take turns doing the pages, and it's quite a lot more regular that we're turning them down. We've pretty much told Waldo County, don't call us anymore. If we had staffing, we'd be happy to go. People are people. We'd be happy to go help them if we had the staffing. In Penn Bay, we've turned down a lot from Penn Bay this year, a lot more than we ever have. We try to take care of Miles as best as we can because that's where 80% of our patients go.
And Miles has just been so incredibly busy particularly this summer, but more so than we've seen in a long time.
Well, I'm just thinking that it doesn't matter how much more money we throw at it, they still get the same pool of people.
Well,
And that's the problem.
so I was gonna make that point about regionalization, is right now the pool is dry.
The pool is dry.
CLC short-staffed,
Yeah.
Wiscasset struggles.
So
with
it doesn't
staff.
matter how much money you throw
But-
at it.
but
there's
it
still-
does.
You're gonna get burnout, just like you said.
But even,
Those people are just gonna work more and more and
I
more,
think what
and then they're gonna be gone.
we lose people, especially in the per diem setting, we lose people to full-time jobs with benefits that pay a little more. For instance, if you're a young firefighter EMT and you have an opportunity to go to Brunswick or Bath, where they have Maine State retirement and benefits and a little better pay, you jump on it.
Yep.
You know, when your thought is, well, I'll never leave Waldoboro because my roots are there, it's where I started.
Right.
But then when they start throwing overtime at you because they're shorthanded, you don't come back to Waldoboro, you know, so.
but that's the other out of the box, not so much out of the box, but we have to think about too, is it time to have the fire EMS discussion? You know, I mean, that might be how we proceed. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. There's a lot on the table. We have to have the conversation. You have to be aware, this is what we're facing. We have to start having the conversation. That's what tonight was about, was the first step in having that conversation. Having it out loud and saying, danger, danger, Will Robinson. We're in a precarious position. How do we fix it? What do we explore?
We had a conversation regionally the other day, and if we took 3 paramedics, I'm not gonna name them, but if we took these 3 paramedics who were working a lot, if for some reason they all got sick or they was out of the mix, this whole county would really be hurting.
So it is, but it isn't a money issue. It's a pool issue. It's a employee
I
issue.
think the thing is, there's people.
And I can understand, you're just gonna steal, we could throw money at it. We're just gonna steal from somebody else and then it's gonna be their problem.
The discussion that's been had amongst regional leadership, Richard, myself, Nick Bryan, is that the plan is to come at it from an angle where we don't compete so badly that we just lose everybody.
Which I don't have an issue with.
Right.
I'm just saying, you're not gonna add jobs by throwing more money at it. You're just
And I
stealing
think-
from somebody else.
But
You're
you
stealing
won't-
from CLC or stealing from back from Wisconsin.
But why would you want to be an EMT or a paramedic if you're not, if somebody literally, I mean, that's got to be a calling to some degree, but there's also got to be a pay incentive to want to go into that career.
I
That's-
understand
I
that.
think you could attract some of the younger people, especially with recruitment, if they knew that they was gonna go through a 1.5 years of training, or 2 years of training, was gonna be a paramedic, but they was gonna have a decent paying, full-time job with benefits, and I think that's what EMS in the state of Maine needs, however they do it, needs to look at, you know.
So there's gotta be a plan. And where that starts could be here.
I think it should, in the absence of a plan, I think we should be the ones making the plan. I mean, if nobody has, that's what it is. I mean, you know, when this first came out 2 weeks ago, I called MMA and said, has anybody else called the MMA to say, hey, this is going to be an issue. Can you find out what's going on? And I was told, you're the only person who called. You know, so I don't think, I called the MMA today. I talked to the new director and I said, she said, how are you? I said, I am not well. And I was very candid in my candid way that I have with her about what our issue is, and that there's got to be a way to communicate to the top. We're in a fragile state. So I do think we need the plan, and the plan should start here. I do.
I didn't really necessarily mean the COVID plan as far as.
No, I meant every plan. Yeah, all the
A
plans.
recruitment
Yeah.
plan, like Richard said, if somebody's gonna go through the process for the next year and a half, they come here, they're gonna be hired on as full-time after, say, a probation period, is that what you'd call it?
Yeah, Nick is 4 of his full-time employees, but he's got 4 of them going to paramedic school this fall. And that's wonderful, but you gonna go with him, Paul?
Yeah.
Thank you. I lost my train of thought, sorry. But,
4 over there.
Talking
yeah,
about-
he's got 4 going to paramedic school, but then they're gonna have clinical times and all that they do. It's gonna put a more cramp into his people. And 1 or 2 of his guys actually give me some good time in filling shifts. And so, but they're gonna have to dedicate over there because he's got these people going to paramedic school. So it's just sometimes it's just, it makes your head spin because it's just a vicious circle. Because you're trying to get ahead, but you're just always.
But we have to have the discussion, and whether it's a plan for recruitment, retention, how we handle COVID, I think there's got to be more than just each entity talking to themselves. It's got to be talking to everybody.
I mean, the town's gotta be involved, not just the CLC and
Right.
all the private entities out there. I mean, you can't just have just the towns dealing with this.
Well, but I think in a way it is got to be, the towns have to start the conversation. You know, we have our town manager from Wiscasset here tonight, and
I came here just for this discussion.
he came specifically for this because, you know, he's facing the same thing. I'm facing the same thing. Nick from CLC would have been here tonight, but he had a childcare issue. You know, we have to have this conversation, and it's only fair that you know about it and you hear about it and our public hears about it, because we need to make sure people understand if there are delays, why there are delays. And, you know, I said to Richard today, is it going to come down to, you know, during the day, are you going to need drivers? Is there something my staff can help with? You know, is there something other we can pull from other areas? Because literally when it comes down to it, when that call goes out, it's serious business. And I don't want to not answer them, and neither does Richard and neither does Derek. And it's going to be a very stressful next few months for sure.
And psychologically, you know, we sometimes have to choose a higher acuity call. That person that dispatch, and we think is lower acuity, but to them, that call is just as higher acuity as the person that that we know is a higher acuity. But to them, so it's just like, you know, it's like we're not taking care of them. So. And some of this too has been from the television shows and stuff. You know, we get calls for itchy feet. We get calls for hangnails. I mean, it's just amazing some of the things we get calls for. And unless they don't have any transportation, sometimes we just have to tell them no. Community paramedicine has helped some. That's cut back on some of what we call the frequent flyers, because we're seeing them on a regular basis and we're going in and doing the blood test or whatever they need done, and that has helped some cut down on some of the calls. But as I said, we're up 300 calls over last year right now, and we're seeing more higher acuity calls, which takes more work from us.
Richard, are you seeing, what I'm hearing is there's going to be a Narcan shortage as well, so will
I have not heard that.
that will add to families not being able to be that urgent care on overdoses as well.
Yeah. Narcan has saved, just in this area, a lot of lives. And now people almost, if you're a known addict, the hospital sends you home with it. So they're saving each other now, so to speak. But even in Friendship, I keep some at my house because I get down on the wharfs. I get calls every so often. Somebody's on a wharf and I don't want to run up to the fire station and grab the bag. So I keep some Narcan right at the house. So.
We so appreciate everything that our emergency services do. EMS, like I said, they were the front line. They have just been stellar, and they have run. And we talked about it during budget that you were hopeful with the changes we made, more people would come. But I also think some people just needed a break. Some of our providers just need that break. It's been exhausting for them.
But I would like to thank you. The bedrooms are just about done. I got your wall painted this weekend while I was here. But the bedrooms are about done, and I appreciate your efforts in approving that and getting that done. And we're cooperating with the fire department over there, and we're getting the day room. And the next project will be putting the kitchen together over there. But so far it's worked out very well, and so we hope within a couple of weeks to be moved into them.
How do the heat pumps work?
What's that?
How do the heat pumps work?
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Too bad Paul wasn't here because he'd tell you how happy he was.
There's a question from Ruben on YouTube.
Go ahead.
Richard, Ruben is asking if the group Lincoln County Shared Services is still a thing.
Lincoln County what?
Shared Services. There's a group that apparently, Ruben's saying that it was a group that used to be a thing a while ago, doesn't know if it is still a thing. I take it from your response, it isn't a thing.
Nothing I've heard of.
All right. Probably a research topic.
I just wanted to verify, you had said that nobody on your staff has gotten COVID through that. Is that from the beginning of COVID?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. We've had zero. Very fortunate because we've been in a lot of it. Taking care of a lot of patients. We had a lot of protocols we had in place, and we modified the ambulances. We put intercoms in them, so we separated the driver from and when we approached house, if we didn't need two people going right into the house, we had one person all dressed up, would try to meet them at the doorstep and start the initial, of what they needed and what was going on, and then the second one would go join him if they had to, and we actually plexiglassed off between the front and rear compartment of the ambulances. And so just everything we did, it was in cleaning. We got everywhere. We got the cleanest ambulances that ever were now because they constantly being decontaminated. I did, I think, 11 calls yesterday, and I don't know how many times I scrubbed that stretcher down, but I was getting tired of it.
Well,
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. You guys have been working your butts off. I don't appreciate the mandate. I don't think it's fair to force somebody to do something they're not comfortable with. I do think anybody who doesn't get vaccinated is not being reasonable, but that's not how you treat them. You don't force them to do something they're not comfortable doing. It just isn't right. And I do think, and I don't speak for the board, but in a way I think I do, we got your backs. I mean, we're going to try to do what you need to have done to make sure that we serve residents of Waldoboro and the towns that depend on us under the mutual aid agreements. But I also think that we need to talk to them about stepping up when we identify areas where they can.
At Friendship and Jefferson. And I think we need to look at paramedic intercept rates. We're low on that. So there's some things that we need to talk about. And when it comes coming into the next budget season of what we're going to do.
and I think, sorry, go ahead, Jane.
Well, I just wanted to, I'm trying to pull out the issues here. There are lots of them. It's like sounds like a comprehensive kind of issues we have here, but Am I correct? I'm hearing that you are in favor of full-time EMS people.
If that is going to help, yes. If that's going to be the answer, yes.
Okay.
But if there's something outside the box that somebody comes up with that is going to be superior to that, then I'm all ears.
Okay, well, labor force shortages, across the board.
It's everywhere. Signs
Everywhere, yeah, everywhere. And that creates a real issue with you guys because of what you do. I'm curious about the training. Does the vocational school start young people?
They do.
They have a program?
They have an EMT and I think they have a fire program too, don't they?
Okay, it doesn't, I don't see that this is gonna happen overnight, that it'll be fixed overnight. I was thinking maybe some of our county issues, some of this is not going to be, I hope, last forever. But, I hope we can, I like the idea of looking at a county-wide, but I was curious about the background, just setting things up for the future. So our vocational school does have a program that we could work with, Stan. And maybe promote and get more young people involved with that. And where does it go from there? Are there, what I used to call SMVTI, it's got a new name now.
SMTC.
Yeah, that. Those schools
They
that
have
are
a 2-year program.
around the state,
Yeah,
they have.
United up in Lewiston, Auburn.
Yeah.
They have a real active program for all levels, basic. They'll take you right up through, all 3 levels.
Yeah.
Central Maine in Fairfield, it's not Central Maine, Kennebec.
Okay, yeah.
They have a program that's very active, and that actually runs through EPMS, or it did. I don't know if it still does. And there's other, Eastern Maine has a program up there. Eastern Maine Technical College, I think it's called. So there is a bunch of programs. So the programs are available. It's just getting people to the programs.
Well, just thinking more long-term, that won't help the short-term issue at all, but, have you considered maybe talking to guidance counselors?
Well, one of the things I always thought is we should be talking to the junior and senior classes in high school.
Yeah.
But right now, we don't have a lot to offer them other than the thrill of being an EMS, and you can come work, all night long for a little bit of money. And so, but if we could let them know that this is something they could work into, this is going to be a full-time job, just like any other job, with pay and benefits.
Right, career.
It's going to be a career.
Right.
It's going to be more attractive to them. I would think, anyway.
Right, I would think it may be starting with guidance counselors who are the ones who talk to the people. And then, if that does happen in the state, if you see that as a trend, going in and talking to groups of students, that's always popular.
Yep.
And there are some students that just, just grab certain.
This is one of those jobs, you either like it or you don't.
Yep.
You either love to do it or you just.
Yep. I think of Aaron.
It's not for you.
Aaron Smeltzer.
Yep.
When he went off and then he came back and he found.
Oh, Derek Booker's another.
Yeah, the joy of his life. And and they're, it would be good to hook some of those people who kind of catch them.
What's it cost to go to school, Richard?
About $10,000 for paramedic program right now.
I figured when I did my paramedic program quite a few years ago now, after tuition and the time that you take off and all the other stuff, I spent about $15,000.
But I think the program itself is 10. But
The program itself is around 10.
like you said, the days you have to take off because you got to do your clinical times at the hospitals or ride with another service. There's a lot to it. It's not just, there's a lot to it.
Would that be an incentive like we do as a police department? We pay for them to get trained? Is that something that?
Well, we used to do that when I first started here, but back then an EMT class was $700, and I think it was $1,600 for the advanced.
But it's $6,000 for us to send a police officer to school too. So.
But we would send them to school, and we had nothing in place, so we'd send them to school, then they'd leave.
Oh,
They
Right.
need, they
If you
need,
do that, we'd have to have an agreement.
there needs to be an agreement that
Right.
you work for us.
But is that
so long
something that
after,
would be,
Or you pay us.
Yeah.
would that be something we could look at?
And young people, we have wonderful scholarships in this district.
And that's what I was thinking too, is we could
We
probably
have
get scholarships
excellent-
to help pay for that as well.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's a lot of money out there for, students going on.
It's a great idea. I like that idea.
I mean, we do it with the police department, so I mean,
You're still gonna need full-time positions for them to report to.
but I think that's what we can, if we pay them to go to school for that. It's just same thing with the police department. They get a full-time position if we send them. They're gonna come back here and have to work here. Now, the funny part about the police department is if a town steals them from us, the town has to pay us
They
back.
have to buy them out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a
But I
bad
think-
deal.
But I think,
Dennis, I'll send you the bill.
Yeah, I can say that.
I think that would be, we would have to have something like that in place. Either they have to work here a certain number of years, you know,
Yeah.
3 to 5 years, and then they can go wherever they want. But if we pay for their schooling.
Or they pay us back. That's
Or
how
they
it
pay
works.
us, or they pay us back. Is that something that
Yeah, they'd have
may
to be,
work? And I think you'd have to
absolutely,
start,
but there'd have to be a contract with them.
yep. But I think that's something to look at.
And I'd be remiss not to give the Y a kudos because Jake Abbott helped create a fire EMS rescue police camp
Mhm.
this summer, and it was well attended.
Oh,
It was very good. We had Life Flight, Lincoln County News covered an article that came and demonstrated to middle school kids. So it can be a community addressed issue, sustained solution.
How many positions, like full-time positions, are you thinking would help to create?
We have 3 full-time now, and I would think probably 7 more.
So you need 10 full-time positions. Okay.
Is that just a guess, or is that based on data?
What's that?
Is that just a guess, or is that based on data?
It's based on staffing data, and we've talked with other
To
agents.
run a full-time department like Rockland or Gardner or something like that, you're gonna need 16, 18
Yeah.
people to run a full-time and do what you wanna do. To be able to respond to two crews, 724, and do all the transfers, you'd need that many people minimum.
Even with 10 full-times too, you would still use pretty
Have
many
to
people.
have per diems right there.
Bob?
Yeah, there might be some synergies you could work out with fire as well. I mean, we cross-train.
Yep.
Kyle's a sterling example of that.
Some of my younger EMS providers are already trained. They work for fire departments and other places.
Well,
So,
But that's another model we have to.
right.
This isn't gonna be solved tonight, but we needed to start the discussion. And we needed to have it so that we prepared, and we have to remember too, part of this was because, the original discussion was, we're having some staffing issues. How could we attract more people? Money was one of the issues that was brought up. That's why we invited Friendship and Jefferson, because they're calendar year municipalities. So they need to know what we are expecting of them, because they have to have theirs done by January 1st. So, we have to
Right.
start having these discussions. This is nothing that's going to be solved overnight, but we had to have the beginning of the discussion.
Just one other comment. You talked about itchy feet and this and that you get calls for. Towns, I noticed, I'm from Brunswick, and I noticed they have walk-in clinics and that sort of thing there. Is that something that, as we're working with Maine Health, is that something that might be available, or that would take that load off of EMS?
I've thought for a long time that a walk-in clinic, or sort of like what Booth Bay Harbor has down there, would be excellent in Waldoboro.
Yep.
And I think it would be used, that would take some of the burden off, yes.
And so that
I
would
believe it
affect
would.
you and help. So,
Yeah, if you had an urgent care in Waldoboro, I think that would be huge.
is that what it's called? Is that the same thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Does anybody else get anything? Dennis, you get any more questions?
No, I came here and as I said, I don't know most of you, but I spent a lot of years in EMS. I actually left this area and moved down to southern Maine because the pay was a whole lot better than what was paid around here. So I can sympathize with that. But I do think this, you have a problem, I have a problem, CLC has a group pay. We all have problems. And I really think this needs to be more of a regional approach as to how are we going to solve this. Because if you start paying more and hiring full-time people, you're gonna force me to do the same thing. And we're still on this carousel that we can't get off of. So I would just like to see us take a regional approach to this and see what we can do to solve this issue. And it certainly isn't gonna be solved overnight. This has been going, and this is gonna be a crisis. If the governor does not back off of this mandate, I'm gonna lose 6 people. I can't afford to lose 6 people. We're gonna have a truck that's not gonna get out the door.
That was another question I had, Richard. As a region, how many people potentially are gonna be disappear? He's got 6, we get potentially 3.
I don't know about
CLC, I think, has 4.
No.
So this,
And we haven't even talked to Miles. I mean, they have issues
All the
with
hospitals.
this. All the hospitals do, yeah.
And again, I think the intent, I think we're an unintended consequence. But I'm frustrated by the lack of, I think before people start making decisions like this, somebody needs to talk to municipalities. Somebody has to say, hey, how is this going to impact you? And that has to, I don't know how to get that message upwards and say.
They certainly heard it yesterday because I was on that call with or Monday, yesterday, I don't know what day it is.
It was yesterday, yeah.
Monday with Maine EMS, and I stopped after 2.5 hours because it was just basically repeating each other, saying, we're not going to do this. And then they turn around and didn't listen to anybody anyways.
There's a lot of frustration in EMS, and that hugely added to it yesterday. So.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been in crisis mode for a long time. This is just really going to kick it over.
It's going to exacerbate it. It is the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back.
I think it really is.
And I've had conversations with people, but people aren't going to leave their jobs.
yeah, they will.
And I'm just like, but in the market you have right now in Maine for jobs, like I said, you could drive a UPS truck.
Or go do dishes.
Or literally, you could go do dishes if that's your thing.
Without all the headache.
But we need to treat these positions as valued positions as they should be.
And as I've said to my select board, even when I was the EMS director over there, you cannot run a full-time service with strictly part-time people. It is a poor business model. Go out in the business world and try to do that and see what happens.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say, I haven't seen the data that justifies the mandate. I mean, it seems to me if the government wants everybody in the state to get vaccinated, you don't do that by picking on the folks who put on the PPE and deal with this stuff every day and don't get sick. You do it in other ways. And it just seems they're using you folks as an excuse in a way. And it's just the wrong way to go. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Call the governor.
Don't hit the students or the folks that are doing their jobs and staying well. That just makes no sense. And you just cited Waldoboro as an example. We've had no COVID cases among our EMS with the precautions they've taken and the calls they've made. I'm guessing that the experience to communities that practice what our community has practiced are similar, or if not identical to that. It's the wrong way to go.
It's a difficult thing to plan for in the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And you don't know who else is going to walk because they've reached their limit and will stand in solidarity. That's the unknown number because they've just had enough. It's been since March of last year and they've gone nonstop and they really are tired. I mean, that's the one thing I keep hearing from the EMS providers is we're tired.
Same, like I said, it's the same level at the hospitals, like you said. I got
This whole thing's been psychologically draining.
my daughter-in-law works for a hospital and she's in bookkeeping, HR. She doesn't even deal with patients and she's being forced, she's gonna lose her job. And they said that, she said that, Central Maine's gonna lose 30% of their workforce. What's that gonna do?
It's just,
It's gonna cripple.
gonna
It's
be-
not
it's
just
gonna be
3, 4,
difficult.
5 people, you're talking hundreds. So, it's just crazy.
well, I'd just like to say thank you very
Yes.
much again.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update. Hopefully we can come up with a plan with recruiting people to.
Thank you, Dennis, for coming.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
All right, moving along. Shellfish Committee appointments. Lee Bennett, Israel Harvey, and Lee Will Pratt. Would somebody like to make a motion for those?
I'd move those 3 individuals for Shellfish Committee.
Jan? Would you like to second it? Because Will
I would
probably
love to
can't.
second it.
Okay. Let's see, Will probably can't second it, seems he's one of the individuals. But is there any discussion on this?
Just got
Hearing none, all those in
3
favor?
great people.
Yeah, I remember when we
And then
put Will on there.
Will be abstaining?
Yep, I'll vote for Lee and Israel.
Well, yeah. And the review of the Mid-Coast Humane contract.
Yes.
That's just the,
Yes, it went up $358.75. I believe.
where was that? I saw it somewhere. I don't know. Terms. How much was it?
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I just had one comment to make. I'm for the contract. I think they perform a really good service for us. I think we ought to have a policy as a town in place to recover costs that the town incurs for them servicing folks who have acted irresponsibly or haven't done.
We do.
We do. Okay,
Yes, so
good.
I'll give you an example. If you'll recall, we had a missing cow lot a few years back.
Yep,
They had to take it. We got reimbursed for the cost of caring for the cow.
okay. I've just never seen that in the budget as a line item, that's all. So,
Because it's not a revenue line, it would be miscellaneous,
got it.
but
Okay.
we do recoup costs.
Thank you.
And they do call prior to doing services. So,
We have a choice to incur or not to incur.
there are times where they would say, yeah, they're good about that. And I will tell you, we're going to be holding a clinic for spay, neuter, and chipping through them, I believe in either October or November. So I'm kind of excited about that at a reduced cost to our residents.
Cool.
I feel like Bob Barker, spay or neuter your pet. The price is right.
You said chipping, somehow I didn't put
Well, they
that in
get
there.
chipped.
I know that, now, I know
We're
it.
not chipping.
But at first, my first thought was
Yeah,
chipping.
no, that's not good. I know. They put the chip in their neck.
Yeah,
Like Fargo?
like trees.
Would you
Sorry.
Make a motion, Bob?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to authorize our town manager to sign the contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay. Now, 10-4, the Browntail Moth Committee. Bob,
Yeah.
do you have recommendations?
We have 3, Caitlin Pukalski, Karen Clark, and Nancy Dale, all of whom expressed interest in working on the committee.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay.
So
Items?
Caitlin, Karen, and
And
Emily?
Nancy Dale.
Nancy. I
Yep.
always call her her daughter's name.
I can understand why.
There's no old business.
Okay.
Any items anybody have for the next agenda?
Well, we have maybe the DOT, maybe,
Maybe.
maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, and the birthday for Waldoboro, I know we've kind of had that on the simmer.
That is, I have no,
Nobody's responded.
other than our lovely town clerk
Oh,
Oh,
and Bill Maxwell
Okay,
and Jean.
Jean.
But I consider them members of the Historical Society.
Yeah.
Yes, they should be.
They are.
They're
Unless
not-
there's somebody else.
They're
that
not
wants to
open
step-
public members. That's who we have. Lots of people giving opinions, but nobody willing to want to volunteer their time to sit on the committee. And Bill Blodgett did come in and say he would be more than happy to sit with us and tell us what they did 50 years ago.
Great.
Oh, that's nice.
I actually went to Winthrop's 200th birthday this weekend and observed what they did.
So I think we should definitely put our town clerk on the committee.
Caitlin.
So we'll put that on the
She's got
next agenda
experience
for
with
her
Waldo
to be
Theater,
appointed.
Yeah.
Okay,
you know.
talk it up to your friends.
All right.
2 years, right?
Mhm.
To get friends. I really enjoy the people who come, like when Karen Ann came today and spoke, and each meeting when someone comes and speaks, I really find that valuable.
And I know she's been here twice, but she's been dealing with a lot.
It's good. Do we have somebody set to come next time?
I think it's, yeah. Tanya keeps a list of people.
Yeah.
So it's either gonna be a board or a department head,
Yeah.
or one of each.
Okay, good. I really enjoy
I know
that part of the
EDC
meeting.
was supposed to come and they missed, so I think they're next up.
Uh-huh,
But they like to come as a group.
group, yeah, I remember it.
Awesome. I guess somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn. Unless you want to talk. So,
So moved.
is there a second?
Okay.
All those in favor?